Hi, this is Monica. The following video is a recording of an online tour I streamed from Heygo last February 2022 from the Porta Miñá Museum in Lugo in northwest Spain. Thanks so much to my followers and subscribers for your support.
And welcome to Lugo in northwest Spain. Well, hello, Deborah. I'm going to change the camera and start the tour then. Okay. So right now, I'm first showing you a general view of how the building looks like. It's a very small museum. If you look at the size of the building, it's just like 3 alleys, 3 rows. It's Thank you, Susan, for your compliment. It's a rectangular building divided into 3 rows. It was built in the 19th century, in the late 1800s, as a slaughterhouse to kill animals to be eaten by locals, okay? So it's a completely different use today because we have so many finds in the recent years. Actually, it's only in the recent years we have started learning about our Roman past. Everybody knew about the city walls because you cannot miss them. But most of the other Roman buildings were underground. It's only in the 1980s when people started needing parking space that we started digging out holes and finding Roman things. And amongst them, and this is the beginning of everything, so if you visit this place, you would come through this door there, and you would be welcomed there. And the first parts of the exhibit talk about previously to the city existing. We have, like here, you have a drawing that shows a river, a major river here. It actually comes all around this way, surrounding a hill. And we are in a step before the huge mountain ranges for the east that had gold mines. So this area, the northwest corner of Spain, the province of Galicia in Latin, was invaded in the times of the Emperor Augustus to take control, basically, of the gold mines. And this was at the very beginning, a military camp. So the drawing is just a hypothetical reconstruction. I'm going to point with my finger. You see the rectangular structure with a palisade and the rows of tents where the military would be camping. And this is about 25 before Christian era. So this is this last campaign. You see Europe. So this was the province of Hispania. The central Spain was Hispania, Betica. So later Lusitania split. That's Portugal. And this is the last resistant corner because the edge, that was the big mountain ranges. So they are 2,600 meters high. So like 8,000 feet high, and so that covered in snow for most of the winter. And it was very easy to defend that from Romans. So actually, it was a very interesting strategy. So some armies came from the south through Portugal, and they would be supported with a logistic by a Roman fleet coming to the coast. So they made a crossfire to finally occupy this area. And these are the Celtic tribes and so the original tribes that would live. And actually, we are here in the center part of the Lucus. The pottery was the type of, so the people that lived here before Romans settled and civilized us. And these are objects from this early period. So this before Christian era. So some ceramics, but very importantly to date, is the coins, because these few coins are especially minted to pay the salaries of soldiers. Welcome, Colleen and Monique and Liz and Joe and Jose. So in this case, it is just a photo that they placed here because this stone is still on its original place. Apparently, we believe the first army that was in Lugo, stationed in Lugo, was the Legio Sexta Victrix. So this is in Spanish, of course. Legio Sexta, the 6th Victrix Legio. Although later on they would be replaced by the 7th, by the Legio Septima Gemina. And 13 or so 15 to 13 before Christ, so antes de Cristo in Spanish is before Christian era. So this is when a representative of the Roman Empire, a legatus, that's the title of this kind of minister, Paulus Fabius Maximus, comes to this military settlement in the name of Caesar and decides this is the place to establish the administrative capital of Lucus Augusti. So this is a photo because the stone is also in a different location. But it is amazing to think that we still have the original foundation stone of this city. So this is how we know who and why and when this city was founded. So first, a military settlement, a military base that becomes a city by the order of the Emperor Augustus, and in his name is Paulus. I don't know if you can read the text. It's actually quite well preserved. Paulus, see, Fabius, Maximus, Legati Caesari. So this is the origin of the city of Lugo. And this is a hypothetical reconstruction, so there are drawings and items here of how the city would have looked like in these first 2 or 3 centuries of this era. So there would be, like in American cities, very straight and wide streets, the main streets, the cadus and the decumanus, and they're like north-south streets and east-west. And there would be a huge, and this is the top of the hill, a huge forum or main square. So it is here with letter C. We know exactly where it was because we have found evidences on both edges, and particularly this building, the basilica, which was 100 meters, like 300 feet long. It was a huge administrative building. Another place which is here labeled with number A, letter A, this is a huge palace, the largest palace found in Lugo so far. So we expect this building to have been like 20,000 square feet, over 2,000 square meters, and probably the residence, official residence of the representative, like the delegate of the Roman emperor in the province. And some parts of it are preserved. But the problem is they are located in a basement, so I have no signal to stream from there. And so we have here some photos of the excavations. And this is also how the houses would look like from outside. So this is how they had porches to the main entrances. So you had either a luxurious lobby or you had tiny shops under the porches, and all the rainwater and wastewater would go along the sides of the streets in this channeling. And this is how we know that, because when they did excavations, they found all these basements under the present city. And in these excavations, they also found interesting objects, mostly made of pottery, ceramic. And so, before I explain about the mask, let me show you this. So these are the first, so the locally made had like thicker material, and they were like simpler, and those that were imported from other more civilized areas would have finer ceramic, and they would be decorated, as you can see, with patterns, and they would be varnished so they look red. Welcome, Camilla. Welcome, Clara. Welcome, Liz. So we have in Lugo in the first centuries basically 2 kinds of people: the wealthy and the working class, even like today. So these are some coins, and this is where they came from and their age, so that were found, so that we can trace, the history of businesses in this place. So the clay around here is perfect for ceramics. So there would be lots of ceramics. So normally what we found here is the basic, simplest items were made locally. The most luxurious were imported for the elites that wanted imported, elegant goods. And this is a mask. Of course, it was found broken, so it had to be pieced up. But this is a mask. We still don't know whether it was really used for theater plays or it was just like decoration or religious or thing like that. Because one of the problems we have in Lugo is we have found so many super nice houses of the elites. We have found different temples, different public baths, different administrative buildings, and even we know now where the military camp was. But we haven't found what the theatre place where. We haven't found the Roman theatre in Lugo yet. So this is probably a part of another of these pottery masks, but we don't know exactly if they use them in place in Lugo. I'm certain myself there were theatre plays in Lugo. Theatre was really a very common activity in Roman society, particularly if there were wealthy people to pay for the shows. What we don't know yet is where they had their theatre. And I will, at the end of the tour, I will show you two of the places that might have been the location of the original theatre. So these would be like imported thin clay and glass items, particularly for oil lamps. Oil lamps were also for the wealthy. It costs money to make oil, so the poorest people could not pay for oil to burn just for light. They just depended on natural light. And we have also lots of iron and bronze objects. Some of them are so absolutely delicate, like the needles. Some of them are part of a hair decoration or for garments, and as you can see here, made of bone or made of metal, and very, very nice little glass beads like these that would be part of a necklace or garment decoration. So see the tweezers and the scissors, they are so absolutely divine. Welcome, Clara and Bev and Cindy. I'm showing items from the first centuries of our Christian era when Lugo was starting to be a bustling city, a capital in northwest Spain, with a population which is estimated around 2,000 inhabitants, and this would have been the forum, the main square. So this is how it looked like then, and this is how it is located under the present city. So some of you know already, because I've done several tours of the city and of the city walls, that the most iconic building in Lugo and UNESCO World Heritage is the city wall, which is from Roman times, and it is complete. But this city wall was built in the 3rd century, at the end of the 3rd century Anno Domini, many years after the city was founded. So originally, and I'm going showing with my fingers, excuse my finger, so there would be this original north-south cardus, and the east-west decumanus, and on the the highest ground was the forum, with its temple and the basilica at the other end, and little shops around. So now I'm going to show more of the ceramics. So these are the locally made, and you will see how they are much plainer. They're like for everyday use and cooking. And you see how thick they are, as opposed, so these would be for working class, and as opposed to these coming from more Romanized areas in southern Spain, which copies the Italian fashion that Romans brought. So these, you see how it's the thinner, and it has this very nice decoration. So this technically called with the Latin name terra sigillata. So sigillata, that means with the patterns made with steels. So they would have these kind of blocks that they pressed against the moist clay before it was cooked. And so it would make very regular patterns. And the archaeologist that works for the main museum in Lugo, another different larger museum, he's written a very interesting thesis about the trade of ceramics, how pottery merchants would bring to Lugo the expensive, luxurious ceramics for the elites, and then so they would sell that here, and then they would fill up their carts with cheaply made rough ceramics, pottery from Lugo, that they would resell in the villages on their way back home. So this is another very important thing for the city, which is the water supply. And this is how the aqueduct would have looked like originally. So it was about 1 mile long, 1.5 kilometers. So you see, it's written in meters here, 1,500 meters northwest of the city. So this is actually the site. So this is the water, underground, water, how you call that? Bubble storage, natural, and so there is a spring here that the Romans would drain, and then in this part there would be arches. Well, cistern is the artificially made container. It is when there is a natural underground, cave which holds water. I know there is a name for that, but for the life of me, I cannot remember the name. So this part, they would be like channels underground. Then it is the arches here, and then it would be like a channel on a little wall coming inside the city. And some parts are still visible. So you see some photos they took of the archaeological finds, and this is the hypothetical reconstruction of how it looked like in the landscape. And then there would be people going to the streets to fill the buckets in public open fountains, but there would be people, wealthy, that would pay to have these pipes built, either with ceramic again, or in this case, lead, to bring the water to the homes, exactly like we do today. So there would be many people that could afford that and would have their own water supply in their own kitchen and their own private baths. So these are some of the pottery factories. There were several around the city, and this is more detail of how they used to be. But this is how we found them, without the dome where they cooked the pieces. And some of these ceramic factories are actually associated to graveyards in the edge of the city. Because these first generations of Romans, they were not Christian yet, they brought many different religions, but in any case, they did not think of a further life, so the dead would be burnt. So the first cemeteries, the first graveyards we found in Lugo, from the first generations of inhabitants of the first 300 years of history, what we find in these cemeteries is like this: holes in the ground with pottery jars that contain ashes of the dead. They were burnt, and then in a ceramic container they would be buried, sometimes with gifts, some objects that they would use in the afterlife, sometimes even nothing at all, because they could not afford that. So this is a reconstruction. So this are not real bones, ashes. So this is how these cemeteries would have been looking like in the first generations. So welcome, Carl and Roxanne. I'm showing the exhibits in this Museum of Roman History in the city of Lugo. Then, so these are this is a panel that shows about different gods that were worshipped here. So Romans integrated the local beliefs with their own gods. So sometimes there would be like previous gods that were given Roman names and would be still worshipped like in ancient times. Later on, foreign gods were also incorporated. So if you were visiting in person, there would be a video here. You would ask to have the video played for you, and they have an English version as well. But because it has copyright, I cannot show it to you. And then this is one of the working tools for a plough for the fields. It's very interesting because actually many of the working tools that were used until tractors appeared, they were the same than 2,000 years ago that the Romans brought us. So that was the first 300 years of history, and you see the names of some of people that live here, so that we know because of so Phil Tates, for instance, this is one of my favorite tombstones. She was a private slave that was a hairdresser in a very wealthy family. She died as a slave, but her companions there had some savings, maybe from tips or whatever, so they decided to pay her a huge funeral monument, like she was, quality folk. So it's amazing to think that there was a slave that died in Lugo 2,000 years ago that we still remember, because she was such a wonderful person that her friends paid her a super tombstone. But then about the end of the third century, 280 Anno Domini, so after Christ in Christian era, the borders of the empire were unsteady, and we had to build a wall. And so this is the last 200 years of Roman presence in Lugo, the 4th and 5th century. So the textiles become more and more delicate, and we find more evidence of different handicrafts. So these are, like, again, needles, but also the weights for weaving. And this is, of course, a reconstruction of how the system was for weaving. This is a drawing of how the profile of the towers of the wall were, but I will show you the wall at the end of the tour. Really, we are just at the feet of the Roman city walls, and this is how it actually changed the outline of the city. I don't like this drawing very much because it's not accurate in the that I mean this area was not as built as it shows here, because these actually were industrial areas for the pottery makers. So there was a lot of open space and flat ground where they dried, the tiles and the jars before they were actually cooked. And in this corner here, before the wall was built, there was a cemetery. Of course, once the wall encloses this space, the cemetery is not longer in use because there were laws in Rome that forbade burying people inside the cities. So after the wall was built in the 300s, it is this other cemetery, this side, which became more and more developed. And what is true is one part, we don't know why yet. So one area here stood outside the city walls. This was working class people, so these were ceramic makers and things like that. So maybe the authorities found it was not practical to make a much larger wall to defend this area. But we know the wall was much, much larger than really the inhabited space, and we don't know why. So this wall, which is still standing to this day, complete all around, is 2.1 kilometers. That's 1.4 miles long. It's an amazing size for a Roman city and still standing to this date. So this wall means the crisis is there. And we know about crisis. We had the bank and mortgage problems in 2008. Now we have the war in Ukraine and the prices of cereals and food in general, like skyrocketing. But crisis mean is that the working class, the poor get poorer, but the rich get richer. And the decoration, this is a fresco painting rescued from a house that was destroyed, and even so the ceramic items, but mostly so the house decoration, paintings and mosaics. And I'm going to show you. This is from a ceiling. They found this complete plastered panel that fell from a ceiling, and how it was painted. So the houses in Lugo, the wealthiest houses, are very beautifully redecorated, and new aisles are added, and new worships and new religions come as new elites become wealthier and wealthier. So this is another fragment of a wall painting. So these are pics taken in situ of mosaics. I will need to find a solution to show you how these sites are, these archaeological sites, where these these mosaics are. And this is another wall painting. I find it so modern. I would so love to have these paintings in, on my dining room wall. It's so modern, and these colors are so bright. And so this is 4th century Christian era. So this is 1600 years old, and see how beautiful they are. Yes, Susan, crises remain with the same consequences. Mankind hasn't changed so much. This is something I found out. So as I learned more and more about the citizen of Lugo from ancient times, they have the same qualities and the same vices than we have. So this is a piece of mosaic, a fragment of mosaic that was relocated here. Sometimes, we prefer, if possible, to leave them in situ, where they found, and if possible, to open the space for the public to visit these archaeological sites. It's not always possible. And then, so after this wall was built, so after the 3rd century, in the 4th and 5th centuries, new religions started spreading, most of them coming from Asia and Middle East, like Christianity at the end. And these beliefs in a further life made people to prefer to be buried in the whole body. So you needed a much larger space than just little jars. So these, of course, this is not a real skeleton. This is how a grave would look like in the late Roman times, in the 4th and 5th centuries. So there would be rows of ceramic tiles, flat ceramic tiles around, like this, making a rectangle. And there would be a wood coffin. We know that the wood, of course, has complete vanished, it's completely rotten. But in most of these square or rectangular tombs, there are nails and there are, iron connections that would be like connecting the planks of a coffin. And one of the main differences amongst these different religions is Christians would not carry personal belongings with them. They did not need, like plates and things like that in the future life, but other religions did. So you see this kind of dowry gifts for the dead. So 2 of the underground archaeological sites in Lugo are these. This one is part of a cemetery outside the city walls, and it was probably a bath dedicated to worshipping the god Ammon in the edge of the cemetery. And this is an altar dedicated to the god Mithra that belongs to a mansion, one of these nice houses of the elites within the city walls. Actually, part of this building was demolished to make the wall, so it was probably abandoned by the time the wall was started. And another of the iconic places, which is also underground and outside the city, is this underground religious building. We still don't know whether there was a goddess Cybele or Bacchus or so Dionysus in Latin, or maybe a funeral building. There's a lot of debate among archaeologists, but these are original fresco paintings from Roman times. So welcome, Evie and Ava and Fred and MB. You're late, MB. I'm almost at the end. I will have a general view of the building. So how the city slowly disappears under the medieval building. So this is the small Porta Miñá museum that I'm so sad that not many people visit. It is free of charge, and you can visit it in half an hour, including the video. And it has the most interesting chronological order to learn about how life evolved in Rome and Lugo, from the times the first soldier set foot on this hill to when the Roman Empire fell in the 5th century. So, yes, I'm saying goodbye to the ladies here and showing you where I am so that you don't miss the place whenever you come to Lugo. So this is just across from a beautiful church, which is unfortunately under scaffolding now because the roof needed repair. This is the Carmel church. And now the sun is blinding. I have to turn around. So this is how the building looks like from outside. An old slaughterhouse from the late 1800s. Then there is a net on the next lot here. You see there's a net here to protect archaeological research. So one of the things they found here, apart from another pottery maker, another pottery factory, is that under this building and under that net and under these houses, there still is one of these cloaca, one of these sewage tunnels from Roman times. So right now they are studying the possibility, maybe in the close future, to open this sewage tunnel to tourists so that they can visit where the dirty water from the city of Lugo went out. So this is the Roman city wall of Lugo, and in the background you see the pointed towers of the cathedral. So I am going to show a little more of the wall from this side, and you see how bright and sunny this afternoon is. So these, of course, the towers would stand much higher, 1 or 2 stories higher. There would be a huge moat instead of asphalt for modern cars to transit here. And there would be a huge slope down. So now you see, I'm trying to avoid the bright sun. So you see where I come from, okay? So down here, there is just asphalt for about 100 yards. And then it is a narrow gravel path between orchards and vegetable gardens all the way down to the river, which is 1 kilometer, like 3/4 of a mile down. And there is a Roman bridge over there. There is also the thermal baths that I show in a different tour. So if you come to Lugo, you cannot miss this. And this is the Roman city wall, UNESCO World Heritage. So all the stones here are Roman, both the big blocks of granite and the little slates. And the reason this museum is called Porta Miñá, Porta means gate, Miño is the river Miño, the name. And so this is actually the Porta Miñá, the gate to the Miño River. And I will show you now the gate from inside. This is one of the best hotels in Lugo, a 4-star hotel in an old manor from a marquise. I will show you the name of the place later, so to finish the tour. So this is how the Roman city wall looks from inside. So you would have a ladder to go up here, and then inside the wall were the last steps inbuilt in the wall. And this would be the room where the soldiers watched the gate. So this is the Porta Miñá. So thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Liz, for your support. This is one of my favorite corners in Lugo. So this hotel also has a nice cafe and terrace. So I'm not affiliated. So this is the name of the hotel. Orban and Sangro. This was the family name of these marquis that rebuilt the place, 1769. So I'm going back, well, the signal gets better. Yes, patho, Susanna, patho. A patho is a Galician word for a manor or noble house. It might be within the city or it might be on the country. So thanks for coming. And so remember, on Tuesday, I don't know, the light is not good. Okay, like this. On Tuesday, I will be touring in Lugo again. It is Carnival. So there will be a parade of people dressing up. So we'll talk about how the Carnival tradition has survived since prehistoric times and adapted to the Catholic strict regulations to nowadays. And there will be another tour in Spanish later in the afternoon after the parade is over, and on Tuesday, and hopefully it won't rain because the weather forecast is not as good as today, but well, we will manage. It will be very bright with everybody dressed up on the streets. And the proceeds on Tuesday, the proceeds of these 2 tours, because it is International Tour Guide Day, will be given to a charity that takes care of people suffering Alzheimer. So thanks for coming. Nos vemos el martes. See you on Tuesday. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.